This is the Plain English Real Estate Show with your host, Rowena Patton, a show that focuses on the real estate market in terms you can easily understand. Call Rowena now. The number is 240-9962 or 1-800-570-9962. Now here's the English girl in the mountains, the agent that I would trust, Rowena Patton.
Good morning and welcome to the show. We've got a great one for you today. I've got to brush up on my Canadian accent, which is probably a little closer than most of you Yankees out there would be my guess. What do you think, Randy? Can you do your best American accent?
Oh,
Can you do a Canadian?
I can do a Southern American. That's it.
Oh,
That's me. Southern American gentleman. Yeah.
wow.
That's the way I advertise my voiceover work. Southern gentleman.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so the cool thing is we have a big announcement today. We are launching in Canada, and I believe we have AJ Hazzi on the phone with us this morning to talk about what he's doing up there. Good morning, AJ. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fantastic.
And I just want to say thank you.
Nice and early for us here on the West Coast.
Yes, I was just going to say thank you so much for getting up so early for us today. Tell us where you're calling in from.
We are in beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada.
And for the people that don't know the areas of Canada, kind of point out in layman's terms where that is. Point to do it in girl terms.
Yeah.
Point to a dot on the
Sure.
map.
Mansplain it? Sure.
Mansplaining,
So it was,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows, I think, where Vancouver is. It's the West Coast. We're just 3 hours inland from that.
Oh, wow, you're that close. I didn't realize that. Thank you for mansplaining it for me. That was awesome. And I know you.
Just ask my wife.
I know you wanted to come on today to talk about the cash offer. You do lots of different programs up in Canada, and we got chatting about 6 months ago, and we were talking about certified pre-owned and how important that is when you're selling a house, whether or not you use our cash offers, whether you're in North America or Canada. How exciting is that? You can use all of our programs and our cash offers. However, certified pre-owned, I want to start with that, AJ, is so important. If you've got your home listed right now or you're thinking about listing your home, don't do it without certified pre-owning it. How does it work with CPO cars up there, AJ? Can I just keep saying up there? Is that all right?
Sure, yeah. That's how most people point. They just point up and they assume that that's the direction. So I agree with you 100%. For the small investment in the CPO, it's a no-brainer, just like you wouldn't buy a pre-owned car likely without one. For us, I think what really clicked for me when I met with you in New York was that because we've always had all these other cash offer programs, but everything really should start from the CPO, and the CPO is the gateway or the access to all of these other programs, because quite frankly, each of those programs requires an appraisal and an inspection. And so we're now adding in the warranty. It's a no-brainer. No matter which direction a homeowner goes, whether they take it to market and sell it the traditional route, or whether they take us up on one of these offers, it makes more sense to start with the CPO. So that was what I was really excited with and to implement here. And nobody's really doing it.
I love that you're saying no-brainer, because honestly, all these years doing this, I started CPO Experts back in 2007 when I got into real estate earlier on, and you know me, I'm not a crier. I cried every third day. I'm like, what is this business? It's horrible. People are horrible, and things are falling out all the time, and inspections, and then everybody gets upset and argues about $5,000 or, I don't know, the piece of furniture that's at the end of the bed, because it hasn't been moved out yet, and it's just the craziest business ever. And CPO can take a lot of that stress and anxiety and money worries, and 33% of the deals falling out. Ours fall out 7% of the time. AJ and I are working on our magic one. We're not quite there yet. However, it's so important. But for people who don't know what it is, let's explain what a CPO car is, AJ. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to have a shot at it?
Well, I mean, a certified pre-owned car has gone through a very vigorous inspection, usually some 52 or 112-point inspection, to determine that it's roadworthy and that a customer can have peace of mind that when they buy it, that it's not going to fall apart on them within a year of them owning it. And given that if there were two cars that were the exact same price and one had a certified pre-owned and one wasn't, the
Which one would you buy?
selectability of the one that did, of course.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you might even pay a premium for it, right?
Yeah.
You might even be willing to pay a slight premium for
It's
that.
3 to 6% they pay more. And it's pretty much the same with the CPO homes. So, and buyer's agents love them too. And why would you love them as a buyer's agent? Because it's in the best interest of your client. If you're running around with your client and they're looking at 3 different houses and one is certified pre-owned, of course you're going to say, let's look at this one, because everything's taken care of. Because you know that 67% of the time, the one that isn't CPO is going to close, right? So 93% of the time, the one that is certified pre-owned, the one that we've busted our tush and done the work on to help you certify pre-own it, that's what we do. That's what we do as agents. We actually work. And CPO definitely takes work on the agent's behalf more than anything. Just look at those figures again. 93% of the time, by the way, if you list your house right now, based on average figures, how long it's taking to sell, you're going to get your cash in Thanksgiving. Let that thing sink in for a second. When you're eating your turkey, you are going to get your cash, right? Unless you go the cash CPO route and we get you your cash in 14 days. That's up to you, of course. But when you get that cash in Thanksgiving, 93% of the time when you're certified pre-owned, that's not getting the cash or anything else, it's just certified pre-owned, where you get the appraisal and the inspection, 93% of the time you're going to get your cash at Thanksgiving. If you go the traditional route, that drops to 67% of the time. I don't think that's very good odds. That's nuts to me, AJ. What do you think? I think it's crazy.
Yeah, and that number of the amount of our deals that we write that actually make it to the finish line, we've been obsessed with that number for the last 5 years, and we managed to, by putting every system in place you could possibly do to get ours up from, like you say, in the high 60s. We now close just shy of 80% of our deals, but
wow.
to get up to 93 would be so much better for everybody involved. It's so much heartbreak for the homeowners. It's actually so much heartbreak for the real estate agents who've been to war over it. And then you get the property back, and it's potentially stigmatized now because everyone's wondering, why did the deal fall out? And it often sells for less the second time around. So you really want to get that first offer to close, and there's no better way that I can see than getting it certified pre-owned.
It's so funny, AJ, because you sound like me. Like, so many people, so many agents don't understand this. And what I've realized is that as I go out and I speak to people about listing their home, they don't understand it either. It's like, what do you mean our deal's going to fall out? Why can't you do better? We can't control what the buyers and the buyer's agent are doing, right? So, and the other thing is people get very upset at the inspection. That's the biggest one, I'd say. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the inspection can throw a lot of curveballs at people late in the game, and a lot of times realtors don't have the expectations set correctly with their clients.
Yes.
And for very silly little items that could be very much dealt with, often deals will fall out. So it's better to get ahead of it all, right? Let's find out what we're dealing with, and let's make sure that we put the home in the right shape and we don't lose the deal over the inspection or the appraisal, for that matter.
Absolutely. Well, that's a big one too. So I'd say it's inspection, appraisal, and then home warranty. But I want to talk about the stress bucket for a minute. Right now, how's the economy doing in Canada?
It's definitely sluggy. Most people are reporting that they have less cash to play with right now.
How's politics up there?
Don't even get me started on that. So.
Okay, just a little bit.
No, I think the one thing that's uniting all Canadians is our disdain for our current leadership. So.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? I think there's one thing that is uniting most citizens of most countries is disdain for leadership. I think that's a very common one. Whether they're all too old or they're swinging super left or super right, that's a great way to do it. The one thing that unites the citizens. And quite frankly, I don't know if you feel like this, AJ, but we talk about it every week. 95% of us violently agree about 95% of the issues, whether they're left or right. It doesn't matter. Like 95% of us violently agree about 95% of the issues. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, but that doesn't sell newspapers and doesn't create clickbait, right? I mean, we all, at the end of the day, just want what's best for our families, and we just want to be left alone and to lead a good life and to have enough money to enjoy the things that we want to do. And all of the other super extreme issues are like you say, they're at the polar ends. We're all really centrist at the end of the day. We're
Yes.
moderate. We just want to just go about our business. And
Yeah.
we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. But of course, that keeping us divided seems to be the playbook.
Isn't that the truth? So it's sluggy there too. Okay. So, and usually the economic cycle in Canada and North America pretty much aligns, would you say?
Very much so. Yep.
Okay. So stress bucket is we've both got sluggy economies, which we've got high interest rates. That means that people are nervous about purchasing a house because we've got high interest rates. We've got prices that have gone through the roof. What else is in that stress bucket, AJ?
Well, our government here, which I don't think you guys have, has added a whole bunch of different rules and regulations to make it much harder to finance a property. And they're really doing everything they can to try to make properties more accessible, which ultimately means trying to get the prices to come down.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of people who have a lot of fear about, with more and more government intervention, that the appreciation we've all come to expect over the years is going to be harder to attain. Now, I don't actually agree with that because it seems to me every time the government does something to stifle the market, all they do is shrink supply, and then with less supply, of course, has the opposite effect.
Yes.
But that doesn't change. We jokingly call it the sales prevention team. Everybody's got a know-it-all uncle that'll talk them out of the deal mid-go. So there's
sales
a lot of that
prevention
where
team.
people, yeah, it usually happens within a week of closing or a week if the subject's coming off. The sales prevention team enters the game and gets involved with an opinion that isn't necessarily based in fact, but is enough to create an already nervous buyers, to get them to waffle at the end of the day.
You just gave me a great idea. I think it's a great idea. I think you and me and a number of the other people in the rate group should do stand-up and we should do skits on this because that is so funny. That is so funny. That is great. Wouldn't that be awesome?
There's so many good ones that could pop up. The know-it-all uncle, the dad that shows up to the inspection. So many good ones.
Oh, the dad that shows up to the inspection. I love that one. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What about the one that's got a realtor friend in name any other state that's not yours, any other province that's not yours?
Yeah, and this realtor is so busy and effective at his job that he's giving advice out of state.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And they did 2 deals last year, or maybe none, maybe 2 deals in the last 5 years, but they know everything about real estate. That's almost the most dangerous one, right? Oh, actually, no, I'll take, we've got so many skits here. This is so funny. We are seriously going to have to do this. So think about the person who's, I'm a handyman. I don't need an inspector. I'm going to look around the house myself and inspect it myself. I don't need an inspector. How many times? Actually, I just had one a couple of weeks ago with a guy that bought a house with us about 5 years ago, and he called and he said, the wall's failing next door. And I don't know whether it's on my property or not. And I said, well, let's look up the survey. Oh, you chose not to have one. And and he's a handyman, so he checked it all out himself. So not a problem at all. But we've got some quotes. It's going to be okay. It's only about $20,000. So stop laughing, Randy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Boy. So we're definitely going to do some skits on this. I think they could be very funny. We need some SNL actors or something. So now we've got
the name of the show is Tales from the Trenches.
Tales from the Trenches. I'm loving this. Maybe we'll do it when I come up to Canada. Because we're going to do some TV advertising for you launching the cash offer up there. It's going to be so much fun. Let's come back to the stress bucket. So we've got sluggy economy. For those of you who've just joined in, we've got AJ Hazzi from up there in Canada, who's taking cash CPO Canada-wide. He does a number of different programs all over Canada, has his amazing own real estate team. I'll then talk about that a bit more in a minute. We're talking about the stress bucket that's going on right now in North America and Canada, all around buying and selling your house. So we've got a sluggy economy. We've got lots of rules and regulations coming into place in Canada, not necessarily here. We've got a few more here than we had before, but not necessarily here. We've definitely both got politics going on. That goes without saying. We've got higher interest rates, and we all know we've been bumping along the top of the market for a while. And in a lot of areas, we're seeing. I look at zip codes all the time, and I've got 30 data points on every zip code and every postal code in Canada. And in many, many areas, I'm seeing 4 months straight of price drops. That's not necessarily showing up in price reductions right now, but come Thanksgiving, when all of that rolls through, that's when you're going to see it. And we've got this little thing here called an election coming up, which slows down everything. I'm sure it does there as well. How often do you have elections, AJ?
Every 4 years, but we're a year behind you guys.
Okay. Oh, so yours is next year. Okay. You're teaching me things about Canada. I love this. And you're so smart and you're funny. Like, this is the perfect Saturday morning. So we've got this big stress bucket going on, and then we add to that an old-fashioned real estate transaction. So what happens is, and you know, people who haven't bought and sold a house, AJ, and this is the bit I realise, just don't think of the fundamentals or haven't experienced it in so long. Things are different. They may have bought a house last time when the MLS used to be a book that realtors look through. I don't actually remember that personally. I've only been in real estate for...
I do.
You do?
I was there.
You're that
I
old,
showed up
AJ?
right as the transition. Yeah, I know. Can you believe it? I started at 19, so when I got there, the old dogs were still using the book, and some of the younger ones were switching over to a new system, this crazy internet.
What? Crazy internet. Do you remember what year that was?
Yeah, it was 2001.
Which is no time ago. Well, okay, for you young'uns out there, that seems like, you know, oh, I wasn't even born then, because you could be 23 at this point, right? At 2001.
Sure.
For those of us who are big old grown-ups with our big girl panties and big boy panties, that isn't very long ago. It's 23 years ago. And suddenly we changed from a big fat book with houses in it. Now imagine that. Houses come for sale and houses are sold every day. Same with real estate. Do you remember real estate magazines? The real estate home books? So, you know, you'd pay all this money to have all your listings put in the real estate magazine, and sellers would expect it. Now it's almost a waste of time. They're like 3 pages big because, you know, it changes all the time and everybody looks on the internet. We're used to it, the big World Webby thing. So, yeah, things have changed so much. So most people now are looking on the internet. They find something wherever they're at and wherever they're moving to. They find the house, and then sometimes they don't even have an agent, especially if they're moving somewhere else. And they contact the agent and say, hey, I'd like to see this house. Sometimes it's the listing agent. Sometimes they want somebody that's more representative to them. Here's a dirty secret, agent. I'm sure you'll agree with me. Most successful listing agents don't show houses. It's a different personality type. Would you agree with that?
For sure. Yep, definitely.
And even if, you know, there's different rules in every province, every state on how you actually represent the seller. But the fact is, if you've got that, legally, in some states you have to represent both. Like in Florida, for example, it's a transactional agreement where you're working for the transaction, not the people, basically. But you have to be honest and fair with everybody. There's a lot of states that operate like that. How is it in Canada? Do you have different rules in different provinces?
We do, yeah. It's all done at the provincial level. So it's British Columbia, where we are, as of 2018, they actually did away with the dual agency where one agent can represent both sides. So now we work under an agency model where each party has to have their own designated agent.
Which makes sense, right? Because think about it like this. So for any of our listeners out there, if you got divorced, would you both use the same divorce attorney? Of course, you might at first when you sit down, you're like, let's make this nice. How many times does that happen? Stuff comes up. And the whole point of having representation is not just for the good representation, it's for the difficult things. So when that wall fails, or when the listing agent, we've got one right now where the listing agent, we have an appraisal that says the house is 2-bedroom. The listing agent says it's 4-bedroom. It's on the MLS as 4-bedroom, and we've got a buyer purchasing it. The appraisal comes in, verifies everything we think, because, you know, there aren't the right doors and egress and all of that good stuff. Now you've got an agent to represent you. What would you do if you were working with a listing agent? Because they're, you know, CYA, they're making sure that, do you think they're going to tell you? They think it is a 4-bedroom. Do you think they're going to tell you? Of course not. So get your own representation. Most of the time, it's not going to cost you any more money. Even though we have all these changes going on and everything else, the changes aren't so great. We've always had buyer agents here. We've always had listing agents here. So step one, the buyer agent is going to look around. You say, I'd like to see this house. You say, well, what are you actually looking for? Well, I've got a dog and I want a little patch outside for my dog to go out. I really want one level. I bet yours is the same as this, AJ. I want one level. I want a 3-2. I would love whatever is in the area, like views or ocean view or whatever it is, regardless of their price point, you know. So like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage on the main level. And, you know, if there's other bedrooms upstairs or downstairs, that's fine. But we want everything on the main level. Would you say that's about 80% of people?
I don't know about the stat, but a very high percentage, you bet.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It's so funny. That's what we want. You would think that 80% of our new builds would be that. And I'd say they're probably 5% of our new builds because it's cheaper to go up. You know, it's so interesting.
Sure.
And boomers, and of course we do assisted living, so we know, or the assisted living CPO, so we know all about boomers and going into assisted living and all the numbers. That number's growing and growing and growing. So, and obviously, you know, we all always get older. That's never changing. When you get past really late 30s, you start to think, I don't know if I want to keep going up and down those stairs. You avoid stairs a little bit more. You may not be thinking at that point, you know, in late 30s, you're like, I think I'll just, you know, I'm not going to go upstairs right now to clean the bathroom upstairs or whatever. In your 40s, you're like, oh, my knees are hurting a little bit. What's that about? In your 50s, some people are having a knee replacement. In the 60s, a lot of people are having a knee replacement, you know, so just for knees and all parts of the rest of your body, people really don't want to go up and down stairs. So you think we'd have got around to that, but we haven't. Back to the stress bucket.
Maybe the stairs are needed, though. Maybe we need the stairs.
Well, there you go. Needed. I like you. In fact, you've got the knee in there. That could be a little skit all in itself, right? So here we are with this stress bucket. You've asked for this unicorn. We're trying to find you that 3-2 with beautiful views, and you know, I'm in the mountains, and people still want ocean views, and 4 hours from the ocean. So we better get a very high point at that point to get the ocean in. It's probably possible. Randy, is it possible? What's that? Is it possible we can be in the mountains very, very high up and see the ocean?
No.
Oh, come on. I'm sure it is from what... Never say never, just say how, right? We'll build something very, very tall that gets that view for you. So you're asking us for this beautiful unicorn. We're going to find it for you because we're super smart agents. And then you visit, or you maybe you live locally. You take time off work, or you fly in to visit. And gosh, we crunch through the right homes for 2 days. And then finally, we've already got your funding in place, which takes some time. Finally, you fall in love with this home. It goes under contract, right? So, okay, you've got the home under contract. Yay, how cool. And then we order the inspection. How long does it take for inspections there, AJ?
Got to usually turn them around in 3 to 5 days.
Wow, that's fast. We're doing on Cash CPO, actually, but Hauser normally is going to take 7 days, we quote. And the appraisal, the banks here do the appraisals like a week before it closes, which is, we could be 5 or 6 weeks in at that point. So let's talk about, so we've done the inspections. So in Canada, you've done them in a week, and then we're going to sit down with the buyers on Zoom, or sit down, maybe they're flown back to wherever they're at, and we're going to talk about the items in the inspection. Here, it's 50 plus items. It's very common to see. A new house is going to have 30 plus items. What about in Canada?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Yeah, so it's not unusual anywhere. So you're hearing AJ say it's the same in Canada. It's the same everywhere. So you're sitting at home with your home right now, thinking about listing it, and you're saying, my home's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it at all. That may be the case because you may just have had an inspection and put everything right. The truth is, most people buy a house, they get money off for the things that are wrong, and then they don't fix them. So most houses have something wrong with them, and then even if you fix them all, 2 or 3 years later, there's going to be more things. So that is just normal. It's just the way it is, and you can say, inspectors have to earn their money, or whatever it is. Maybe that's the case, but this is just how it is. We can't change that anytime soon, unless you're one of those people who go, I don't need an inspection. Please don't do that. So you've got the inspection as the buyer, and unfortunately, the listing agent didn't know about certified pre-owned, so they didn't suggest to the listing agent that to the seller that they have a pre-inspection, paying $500-$600 to have the inspection, depending on whether they've got a well and other things, if this, then that, but about $500, which means that Now we're all back into negotiations again. You may as well here not be under contract because that buyer's going to go, well, wait, this thing is scary. We're moving into a buyer's market, guys. And this is going to be the case for 3.5 to 5.5 years. That is the cycle. It's 7 to 11 years to the top again. That's when you're going to see the big dollars on your house, which means the bottom is 3.5 to 5.5 years away, technically. I mean, it might sway a little bit either way there. So now we're moving into this buyer's market. The buyer's going to be like, well, wait, I want this fixed, and I want this fixed, and I want this fixed. Or very often here, they'll say, I would like $20,000, please, and I'll put it right. What happens in Canada, AJ? How's that split between please fix it or please spend the money?
Well, like you say, it really comes down to whether we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market, because who has the negotiating power
Exactly.
at the time. We are definitely already in a buyer's market. We've been kind of plotting along the bottom already for over a year.
Wow.
So what we're seeing now is that the buyers, because they have the balance of power, they tend to overvalue the mistakes or the corrective items in the inspection, and then you end up having to spend a lot more in terms of taking money off the price in order to satisfy that buyer than you would have spent if you just dealt with it on the front end.
Yes.
Because when someone sees, there's this issue, the negotiating where they say, well, this is what I would need off, they're taking the actual cost plus almost like a peace of mind tax or something they're adding to it.
I love that.
And it's like, it's not really connected to reality. It's more about a feeling at that point. And if that just didn't come up at all because it was taken care of or there was a warranty, you wouldn't be having that renegotiation.
I'm definitely stealing peace of mind tax. That's perfect because that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly what certified pre-owned does for you. So as a seller, even if you don't fix the items on that list, maybe you don't have the money to do it. You're thinking, I don't have the money to spend, I could spend the $500 on the inspection, but then there's all going to be all these things that maybe I don't want to know about. It's almost like the people that don't want to do the gene testing because they don't want to know if they're, positioned to maybe get some terrible disease that runs in their genealogy. The problem is, if you know about it, you can take some action, right? And maybe live a little differently or take supplements or something. The peace of mind tax, you're sitting at home going, yeah, I can afford the $500, but I really don't want to know. Well, the problem is you're going to know when it's under contract. I had a very big agent in Charlotte. It's about 2 hours from here. Charlotte's a big market. It's one of the biggest financial services markets, actually, in the USA, in Northern America. And he stood up, amazing guy. He's a really good friend. And he's become a big proponent of this now, and he actually teaches it. So he stood up. I had a lot of people come in from different real estate offices, and I was teaching that day. He stood up and he said, I've got 30 listings. I can't do CPO because I'd have 30 listings with issues. And the entire room went quiet because, we've got 30 listings with issues. So that's the peace of mind factor. I love that, the peace of mind tax. You don't want to pay that tax. And you don't have to pay to fix all the items. It's great if you do, right? Because you can use a handyman, you can use your brother-in-law, you can use Bobby down the street, you can use Aunt Jemima, who's really handy at that point, and get everything done. If you don't have those people, or you're not handy, or you don't have the money to do it, the odd thing is that when you have that inspection in place, when the buyer then, again, you've been looking around, you found your dream home, when that offer comes in, I come to you and say, wait, before we go into contract, wait, there's more. We have an inspection. Let's share that with you so you can see what we looked at when we priced the home, because we priced it with these issues in mind. Right? It's like a car. We know this piece and that piece isn't working. We know the brakes need fixing. So we reduce the price because we want to get it sold. That's what we're doing with the house if you haven't fixed things. And I'm at 3,500 transactions over that now. And in all those transactions, I've never had a buyer when we've presented that, and you present it in the right way to the buyer's agent that then gives it to the buyer. I've never had one back out because everyone goes in eyes wide open, and it's that peace of mind. And that's exactly what I say. And you just said peace of mind tax. So I love that.
Well, I don't know if you experienced this, Ro, but there's like a psychology to the buyer when they're in that like first moment where they're falling in love, they can see themselves living somewhere. If you're up front with them at that point, say, "Oh, look over here. There's this little issue over here." The 9 times out of 10, it's usually the husband who goes, "I can fix that. That's easy,"
Yes.
and it's like almost dismissive to the issue. But if that issue shows up after they've negotiated, the psychology of the buyer is very different. They're almost in that buyer's remorse phase, and suddenly they can get triggered by something that, had it been brought up before they made the offer, they would have dismissed it and said, "This is of no consequence to me. Let's just carry on. I love this house." But as soon as the negotiation's over, you get a very different buyer on your hands with respect to those issues.
I mean, this is so funny. I feel like we've been hanging out together for 10 years and discussing these issues because you sound Randy, does he sound I mean, Randy's like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like, are these kids from the same mother? It's very, very strange, honestly. So AJ just nailed it. And this isn't, 1 in 10 buyers. This is 9 out of 10 buyers. So it is a psychology piece. It's so exciting. Sometimes you've been looking for years. In this market, sometimes you've been flying in and out because, we're in the south, we're in the mountains, which means that, although it's darn hot outside now, we're in the south, so it stays warmer in the winter. We don't have those, hard winters, and we don't tend to have those very hard summers, although I'm wondering today because it's so hot outside. So a lot of people come here because of the elevation and because it's beautiful. And yet we're still in the south, we're central to a lot of places. So you've been flying in for years and you finally got moved and or you finally found this house that you're all excited about. And all these years and all this, or it might be a month, all this month of excitement finally lands in the house. And then we go to bed that night and we start to freak out. Do you think this is what happens when you get married, AJ?
I wouldn't know. I was all in.
oh, yeah. That was almost too fast that he replied to that, don't you think, Randy? What do you think, Randy? Do you think it might happen on the next Maybe it just happens 7 weeks later. I don't know. 7 years later, apparently. There's a lot of truth in those things, right? So you, not necessarily the marriage bit, sorry. Anyway, so you've put this contract in. It's signed. When you call them and say your contract has been signed, everybody is so excited. Sometimes you're almost in tears because, like, finally I found this amazing house that I've been looking for so long, and we can do this to it and we can do that to it. And then it starts trickling down. What if that happens? What if the septic is weird? Oh, I've started reading about that area. Well, I heard there was a shooting 9 years ago. What if? This part of our brain, caveman brains, kicks in, I think, the safety piece. You wanted to say something there, Randy?
Well, really, I mean, it mushrooms. It grows. I mean, oh God, what if I lose my job?
Yeah, what if I lose my job? Exactly. Yeah. What if she gets pregnant?
And usually, the sales prevention team usually shows up around this time too, to confirm your suspicions.
You did what? What does the sales prevention team say?
They pop in and say, "Are you sure you want to buy in this market? Don't you hear about what's going on in the economy?"
Yeah, you did what? Have you heard about interest rates? Oh, this is so funny. This is so going to be so. The sales prevention team have now showed up in absolute earnest, and they're all marching all around you, whispering in your ear. Have you heard about interest rates? Do you know there's an election in November? We don't know who's going to win. If X wins, it's going to be terrible. If Y wins, it's going to be terrible. Like, we could go on and on and on. And all these little voices in your head. Your grandma that died 20 years ago is whispering in your head, "You don't want to do that. I rented all my life. It was no problem at all." Right? So the sales prevention team are all there going, oh my gosh. The kids are like, I'm going to miss all my friends at school and we're moving too soon. Let's just leave it a year. Like, you got a whole army. And then your own voice kicks in. What if there are things wrong with it? What if I can't fix it? Is my wife going to think I'm not very manly? What do the guys think, AJ? I'll be the wife and you can be the husband, and then we'll get in trouble, and I don't care because we've been doing that for years. What does the guy think?
Well, I can confirm whenever I bring a handyman around the house to finish up the honey-do list I've been neglecting, she'll often say to me, "It's really nice to have a man around the house from time to time."
Exactly.
Just a real emasculating experience for me as a guy who sells things for a living.
Oh, well, that's very true. But the thing is, I always say there's no problem if you can't fix things, but you got to have the money to pay other people to fix things, right? And that's both of you.
That's what I say.
Yeah, as long as you got the money to get things fixed and do things that you can't do, because we're all not that smart that we can do everything. We've got to be.
There's very little I can't fix. There's very little I can't fix with my phone and my wallet.
Randy, I'm telling you, this is stand up all the way. Phone and my wallet, I love it. When I'm talking about CPO, when I go out to a listing, I actually say, what is your honey-do list, especially the cash CPO? Because almost 99% of people that live in a house when they're selling a house know what's wrong with it or what they would like to do to improve it. I want new countertops. I wish I could have painted the cabinets. It needs a fresh coat of paint. The floors are all banged up. Isn't this true, AJ? You move in and you go, I'm going to switch out all the floors. How often does it get done?
Yeah, almost never. But the discount, they want the big discount for those floors they're never going to do.
Isn't that the truth? So, back to an old-fashioned real estate transaction. Now they're looking at the floor. So, we've got the whole sales prevention team. The army has come to play. And the sellers are like, oh, this is great. We finally sold. So meanwhile, in our sellers' heads, the seller's like, okay, we're going to book the schools in a different area, or we're going to move to be by the grandkids because we've been saying we'll do this for 3 years and now the grandkids are 32. We wanted to be there when they were toddlers so we could be within their lives. And they've gone on and on and on. And finally, they're under contract. They're so excited. And then, a week or two, it gets to that inspection point. And that you don't sleep the night before. It's terrifying. I've been there. It is not fun. You're a guy, AJ. Would you say it's terrifying? Can you say that in a manly way?
I'm not going to admit anything is terrifying, but there's some concerns as a man as you approach this deadline.
Hello. So there's some concerns, and that might give you an extra bourbon at night, right, before you go to sleep, which is going to, ultimately keep you up. But that's a whole other story. Now everyone's going to bed. The buyer's agent, the listing agent, the sellers, everyone's going to bed before the inspection, getting chills. Sometimes you just have a little concern like AJ and you drink a little bit too much maybe. But, everybody's going in with some concern, and then it happens. And there's 55 things on the report. And it looks really scary because it's 50 pages long. It's terrifying. So what we're doing with Certified Pre-Owned is we're taking all of that terrifyingness out. We're taking out the ability when the sales prevention team come in and say, you did what? Oh my gosh, you don't even know people there to fit. We're taking all that off the plate because it's already taken care of. If you don't fix things, that's okay. So if you're the buyer, AJ, and I come to you and I say, listen, I priced it with this in mind. It's $1 million, but we knew all these things on the inspection report. Let me show them to you. And by the way, I got some quotes on them. So we know how much it's going to cost. And we've taken that into account. We took $100,000 off, in fact. So now you can even rebuild the patio outside. So we priced it in consideration. Would you feel like you trusted me more at that point, AJ?
Absolutely.
It's back to that peace
kind of like
of mind.
When you go to a restaurant and the waiter is kind enough to steer you away from a bad appetizer, you suddenly trust him much more because you didn't have to order the appetizer and experience how bad it was in order to. It's like the trust is created by that transparency.
Can you come on the show every week? Like peace of mind tax, you said. Right, so there's peace of mind, there's the peace of mind tax. And the analogy of a restaurant where the waiter says to you, not many people, I've had that one sent back a couple of times, or I just don't think the Brussels sprouts are that crispy tonight, whatever it is. You feel like you will trust everything they say, and you're going to order the darn steak even if you're a vegetarian at that point. So it gains that trust, right? It gains that peace of mind. I actually met a client the other day. I was on the phone with her, and I discovered she was just down the street. I said, let's go for an appetizer. We went, and I went to the Admiral. Love the Admiral, best restaurant in town. Unfortunately, it's almost all meat, and then I discovered she was a vegetarian, but that's a whole other story. So now we've done that inspection. We maybe have fixed or not fixed everything, and you're perfectly happy with the fact that everybody's going in eyes wide open. It's like, well, you sit down with your honey, or you sit down with your what are they called, the sales prevention team. You're like, well, we know that this is going on, we know that is going on, and we still think it's a good deal, and they've even had an appraisal. It's amazing. So everybody goes in eyes wide open, and it's a totally different transaction. If you're an agent and you're listening to the Real Estate News Radio show today, if you've got friends that you want to listen, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go to realestatenewsradio.com, listen to the podcast, and you can actually get a link to listen live anywhere. Canada, Mars, the moon, anywhere you've got a link to listen live. This is all syndicated out there, and of course it will be podcast as well. So you've got the sales prevention team coming in, and now they're feeling more comfortable, and the transaction smooths through. If you're an agent listening to this, once you've done a listing certified pre-owned, you will never go back. I believe California now is not only recommending but requiring the pre-inspection be put in place, or it's coming in place. I'll find out about that one for you. It's just how it should be done. It's a better way to do real estate. We started this in 2007. We started teaching agents around the country to use this process where to say to sellers, hey, you can do this. Yes, it costs a little bit of money. It might cost you $900 up front, but it's probably going to save you $25,000, $35,000. Your house will sell faster. Everyone goes in eyes wide open. You're going to get that in Thanksgiving at this point. You're going to get that check 93% of the time, 67% of the time with a traditional sale. So now you understand the process and the difference between certified pre-owned and an old-fashioned real estate transaction. And if you're listed, you can still change it. Talk to your agent about getting that inspection, of course. If you happen to be here, you can give us a call at 828-333-4483 and get on my calendar, and I'll come out and list your house. So now you've got those two. Let's talk about cash CPO. Let's talk about our cash offer, where our funding partner, whomever that funding partner is in Canada or here or wherever we're doing it around the world, because these programs are around the world now. So we buy your house. It's very simple. We buy your house. You get a choice of when you want to move out. That could be 14 days, could be 90 days generally. You've got a fairly broad spectrum. If you need to stay longer, we can figure that out too. That's why we're doing it for assisted living. You get that call, you've got to move into your assisted living. You want your money out fast. You don't want to fix anything. Most people, if I said to you, do you want to sell your house without people traipsing through your house, where you don't have to take the kids, the babies, the husband, the wife, get them out of the house every single time and keep your house show ready? Who would say, yes, please, I want that, instead of no? No one, right? What do you think, AJ? I mean, who can you argue for me why anybody would want people traipsing through their house?
Well, all you need to do as an agent is once every 10 years, sell your own home and go through the sheer agony of having people come through and no show and, stay longer or show up late, and you're constantly cleaning up, especially if you have kids. It is a nightmare. And you think to yourself, why would anybody pay me to do this to them?
Yeah.
But the reality is we move because of life events. And if there was an easy button where you could avoid all of that, you would take it. And I think historically that easy button has come at a pretty sizable cost.
Yes.
People can't afford. But with this program, that's not the case.
And I think, AJ, what you mean by that is most cash offers are, the ugly ones are 50%. If you're really lucky, you might get 80%. Would you say that's fair? It's normally around 70% with investors. When you negotiate with the investor really hard, you'll get 70%. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, 70, 75, yeah, that's normal.
So ours is, and this is proven true since 2017. Ours is between 90 and 120% of what you'd get with an old-fashioned listing. That means 2/3 of you will even get more. How crazy is that? So how it works is that you get your money, you get the majority of your equity between 14 and 90 days. And by the way, if you're listed, we can do this for you too. You just ask your agent to put it in, or you can go to cashcpo.com, cashcpo for certified pre-owned.com, and click on the Get Cash Offer, put your details in. It takes about 3 minutes, and we'll get the cash offer to you, and you can share it with your agent, or your agent can do it for you. If you're an agent listening, you can put it in. Why not get an offer? It's going to be the same as your price. It's going to be the same as your expired price. It's going to be the same as your FSBO price or thereabouts. We are not coming in trying to buy it at 70%. It's a different process. So now you've got 70% of your money, 14 to 90 days, your choice, right? We can push it longer if you need to. So you get that cash and you're able to move out. You move out 14 days, 90 days, whenever you want. And then we use the funding partner's money, we borrow their money, to do some HGTV magic on your home. It might be you might be like, oh, my home doesn't need anything. Guess what? When they pay up front for the inspection and the appraisal, we're probably going to need stuff. And they take a percentage of the sale, so they're not trying to get an appraiser to go in and appraise it low. We're all aligned, right? The funding partner makes more money, you make more money. You make more money, the funding partner makes more money. So they want to get an appraiser that's going to give a really fair market value. And the inspector goes in. We want a really strong inspector that's going to find everything. We can choose to fix it all or not. We're borrowing their money to do it. And yes, that money eventually comes off the profit. But if you were a buyer looking at a house that's freshly paid... Okay, so if you're a seller and you go, my house doesn't need anything, trust me, it needs a deep clean. It needs you and the dogs and the kids out of it. And all your furniture that you bought from a different market and it's heavy and dark and maybe it's not very modern. Come on, you're sitting out there, it's like, oh, I wish I'd bought some new furniture for the last 10 years. Or you've got your Harvest Gold fridge or your chipped countertops or whatever, or your dated granite at this point. Even, some granite from 10 years ago looks dated. You all know what I'm talking about. So it could be just a deep clean and you and the dogs and kids out, honestly. It could be painting on the walls. I like to go in and use Sherwin-Williams Pure White. There's a little tip. If you want to do some remodeling, just paint it white everywhere. It's like an art gallery and it smells fresh. It looks warm. It's not that cold white. And sometimes we paint the cabinets. Sometimes we put hardware on the cabinets. Sometimes we make all the floors the same. Maybe you've got a little dog that's been peeing on your carpets. Maybe you're older and you can't afford or don't have the time to do all of this. We go in and we do we've all watched those shows, the HGTV shows, where they go in and, the owners come home and they're crying. They love it or list it. They almost always keep it. And they come back crying with the big reveal. That's what we do to your house. And then we resell it. And most often you make a considerable amount of more money because your house competes with new homes. It competes with all the other homes out there that are similar. The 3-bed, 2-bath, master on the main. Oh, we can't say that anymore. The garage on the main level. And, all the things that 80% of people want. Your house is going to compete better because all the other houses haven't done this. And what does it cost you? Actually, you're in the negative because you don't have to have showings. You don't have to go through that agony. I did it myself last year, AJ. You are absolutely right. It is miserable. Are we going to tell you that as an agent? AJ and I, most agents won't tell you that. It's not fun. It's miserable. Don't do it. So you haven't got a sign outside. Your neighbours aren't going, where are you going? Like, it's all private. If you've got a short-term rental, you don't want a sign outside because it's costing you business. Your short-term rental is all about getting the same guests over and over again. They're going, what's happening? Oh my gosh, can I even go back there next year? You're losing value in your short-term rental. If you're getting a divorce, you don't want to sign, they're finally getting divorced and selling the house. You don't want neighbours tittle-tattling. You don't want people coming into your house with all that misery in it because you're going through a divorce. This is your easy button that you can press and move on, but it's not costing you money most of the time. 2/3 of you are even making more and not having all that stress. And you can move into your assisted living. You can move into your apartment or your new house if you're getting a divorce. If you're having a wonderful life and you're about to have a baby and you need a bigger house, you can make an offer now on your next house that's not contingent because you've got your money. What else would you say, AJ? Why else is it wonderful?
Well, I think one thing we haven't talked enough about is the certainty that it creates. The problem with the traditional way is that you really don't know, and the buyers typically in this market will dictate the timeline, and maybe that timeline doesn't get you where you want to go before that baby arrives, or maybe it doesn't get you into your assisted living in time to get the room you've been on the waiting list for, or maybe it doesn't get you, to the out of state or out of province in time for the grandchild that's arriving. The certainty that you get with a cash offer is of massive value that I think needs to be stated.
You're so correct. And those timelines. So we've got assisted living, CPO, if you want to know more about that. If you've got parents or you are thinking about assisted living, or if you're on the list for assisted living, and maybe you've got grandparents who are on the list or thinking about assisted living, or maybe it's your parents who are just being stubborn and you have to keep flying across the country every time something goes wrong to take care of them. And, you know, as siblings, you're getting together and saying, it's really time we need to start looking at facilities. Or if you're on the list, you're going to be often on the list for years. We've got one here that's an 8-year waiting list. Make sure you have our cash offer in your back pocket. Don't listen to the sales prevention team who are going, oh, they're just trying to take your money. It's something skeezy. I've been in real estate for 17 years. All of the people around me, the top agents across the country, I'm in a group called Radio and TV Experts, AJ's as well. So all of these people, a lot of them have been doing cash offers. I've always veered away from it because, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with that model. There's plenty of people that will take 70% because they just want out and take the money and they're done. You know, I understand that. I've never wanted to be involved in that. But now I'm involved in this. You get 90 to 120% and it takes out all of that stress. And you've got a certified pre-owned home with the inspection and the appraisal in place. You know when that money's going to come through. And that's what AJ's talking about, the certainty of the timing. But it doesn't matter. Gosh, can you believe we've done a whole hour? We've got our last 2 minutes. It doesn't matter if you don't need that money for 6 months. Get us out there. Get the offer in your back pocket. We may have to tweak it in 6 months because we know the prices are starting to go down. But get that offer in your pocket now. Let's get the work done now. Maybe you'll decide to do an old-fashioned listing. We'll help you with that too. We're more than happy to help you with that. Or a certified pre-owned where you do it yourself. That's fine too. We'll help you both. So, AJ, thank you so much for getting up so early. It's not even 8 o'clock there right now. Talk about, just finish us off with a minute of your amazing expertise and funniness. And again, we love you. Thank you so much for today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And no pressure on the expertise and hilarity at the end here. Okay. Well, I would probably just say the one thing that I think needs to be explained a little bit is that with the right advice, that 120%, I think a lot of people maybe are like, how would I get that? And how would I possibly get over what my property's worth? And I think it's important for people to realize that more than likely there's some low-hanging fruit where an investment of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 could easily increase the value of your home by 10 to 15%. And most people, that's cost prohibitive. They don't have, especially in this economy, they don't have that money just sitting around. And so they can't take advantage of that opportunity.
Prices.
They don't have the time, they don't have the expertise, and there's no tradespeople they trust around. So having an expert with this tool in their tool belt, whether it's a realtor listening or whether it's you and I, when we can show up and say, don't worry, we've got the construction team. Don't worry, you can settle at closing for the expenses. We'll take care of it. We have our own in-house designer that's going to make sure that things are brought up to what today's buyer standards are. And we can go and really maximize the sale, and we do it without you having to go in the hole or manage any of this process. You get to move on to your next place in advance and then take the second stage of your sale. It's a beautiful thing, and it really can yield you far more than what you would have got.
AJ, you're amazing. I love you to death. Thank you so much today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Catch us at realestatenewsradio.com for the podcast. See you on the radio next week.
This has been the Plain English Real Estate Show with Rowena Patton. Visit Rowena and post your questions at radioasheville.com or call her at 828-210-1648.